My name is Socrates. I was an Athenian soldier, a philosopher, a citizen who loved his city more than anything in the world. And I am here to tell you what that city did to itself, and how I witnessed, saw, and lived the Peloponnesian War. 431 BC, the port of Piraeus. This was the beginning of what you would come to call the Peloponnesian War. And we believed, truly believed, we would win it quickly. I stood among thousands of Athenians, soldiers, merchants, mothers, and watched the greatest fleet the ancient world had ever assembled leave for war. Hundreds of triremes, bronze rams catching the first light, oars moving as one living thing across the water. The Parthenon stood new and gleaming above us, and we all felt something close to joy. Athens was at her absolute peak. Our democracy was the envy of every city in Greece. Our philosophers, our playwrights, our soldiers, our sailors, the finest the world had ever produced. We were not just a city. We were an idea. The greatest idea humanity had ever attempted. And standing at that harbor, watching those ships, I believed with everything I had that nothing could touch us. I was wrong. 1 year later, the Spartan army marched into Attica and burned our farmland. Our olive trees, some older than our grandfathers, gone in an afternoon. Pericles told us to stay behind the walls and let the navy win the war. We trusted him. But then, the plague arrived. I held dying men in the street, because no one else would touch them. I watched neighbors I had known my entire life, gone in hours. Pericles died in that plague. The man who built the Athens I loved. The man who promised us victory. Gone, and without him. Athens began to make decisions the way frightened people always do. Badly, emotionally, and with tremendous confidence. 15 years into the war, Athens decided to invade Sicily. I want you to understand what that means. Sicily, an island we barely understood, thousands of miles from home. A second front, while we were still fighting Sparta. I stood in the assembly and listened to the debate. A brilliant general named Nicias argued against it. Passionately, logically, correctly. The assembly voted him down. Then, in the particular cruelty that democracies are capable of, appointed him to lead it anyway. I watched the fleet leave from the same harbor as before. The same stone walls, the same blue water. Larger fleet this time. 40,000 men, but the feeling at that harbor, different. At first, we were winning. Syracuse, the enemy's city, was on the verge of falling. Then Athens recalled one of our own generals mid-campaign, Alcibiades, the man who had designed this entire campaign. He knew what awaited him in Athens. Trial. So instead of returning, he defected to Sparta and gave them everything. Our strategies, our weaknesses, our plans. Sparta sent a general to Sicily. He arrived and turned a city on the verge of surrender into a fortress overnight. Nicias, our army's leader, the man who opposed this campaign and was appointed its leader by our democracy, had a window to retreat. He hesitated. Then on the 27th of August, 413 BC, a lunar eclipse came. And you know what a lunar eclipse meant in our culture. The worst omen imaginable. The seers told him to wait 27 days. He waited, while Syracuse closed every exit around us. Athens sent reinforcements. Too late. The new commander looked at the situation and screamed that we need to leave. Now. Nicias refused. One last gamble, break the blockade by sea. They tried. They fought for their lives, bravely, but they lost. The survivors were hunted down inland. Both our generals executed. The rest dragged into the stone quarries of Syracuse and worked to death under the Sicilian sun. 40,000 men. Almost none came home. And here is what I need you to sit with. Nobody forced them to go. Athens voted for it. Freely. Enthusiastically. Democratically. The most dangerous thing is not a tyrant with an army. It is a free people that has mistaken its own fear for wisdom. In 404 BC, 27 years after that fleet left the harbor, Sparta won. They tore down the long walls of Athens, while a Spartan flute player kept the rhythm. Stone by stone, in time with the music, I watched it happen, standing in the street where I had spent my entire life asking questions, trying to understand what justice was, what courage was, what it meant to live well. And I watched Sparta celebrate. And I thought, you fools. You have no idea what you've just done. This was the greatest civilization humans ever built. Sparta couldn't govern what they had conquered. The finest soldiers the ancient world ever produced completely lost the moment the fighting stopped. Within a generation, Thebes broke them at Leuctra. 33 years after their greatest victory, Philip of Macedon saw the wound we had made in ourselves and walked straight through it. His son Alexander finished what was left. 27 years of war. And both sides lost everything. And 5 years after the walls came down, Athens put me on trial. Corrupting the youth, they said. But we both know what I was really guilty of. Asking questions that a city in pain no longer wanted to answer. They sentenced me to death. And I want you to understand what that means. The war didn't just destroy Athens politically. It destroyed something in her soul. The city that once stood at that harbor, proud, brilliant, alive, became a city that executed the man who loved her most for asking her to be better. Athens didn't need Sparta to destroy her. The war simply showed her what she was capable of when she was afraid. My name is Socrates. I loved Athens more than she deserved, and she killed me for it.